Hello and welcome to Gardener's Island.
Hi, I'm Cedar. I'm 15 and I've lived on Pender my whole life. Last summer, I was inspired to get more involved in my family's garden, and this summer, I've convinced my mom to help me make this gardening series. This episode, we'll be preparing our garden for this season of planting, and then looking at Trevor's seed starting system. We'll then meet with Matthew Vasilev from Twin Island Cidery to see how he prunes his trees, before returning here to plant some bare root trees of our own. We're looking forward to exploring this island's gardening community and inspiring you to get back in your garden.
Hi, my name's Wendy Lopatecki, and I've been on Pender now with my family for 17 years, and we've been on this property here for 12 years, and it was raw land when we bought it. So our vision was to have lots of gardens and growing space for food and fruit trees, and at the same time we've been building a straw bale house. So the gardening has been a bit slow over the years, and now that the house is almost done, we've managed to put the fencing around the whole outside of the yard, and that is giving us a lot more freedom for incurring and developing more garden space. Gardening is really important to us, and we would like to share that journey with you. So we built this greenhouse last summer. We made it out of cob, which is a mixture of clay and sand and straw, and we just put that on the north and east wall. The other two walls inside are all made of recycled glass. We need to dig out the floor and put down a bunch of gravel so that it's usable for starting a bunch of seedlings, and then growing on hopefully tomatoes and basil and some peppers and cucumbers for the summer. So let's go do some digging. Awesome! Now that the greenhouse is pretty much done, I can get some seeds started for this year. We put in this Veggie Garden about 11 years ago, and I think it's time to rip it all up. It's getting a little overgrown in a lot of areas. So when we designed the garden, we put rocks along the edge of all the beds, and they've kind of been a bit of a problem for the slugs. Also, we made the paths just much too narrow, so I could never get a wheelbarrow down the paths to get to the beds. And they're kind of arranged in this kind of curvy pattern, which is really fun, but actually hard to really work with. So this year we're just gonna dig pretty much everything out and remove the rocks and put in cardboard and wood chip paths, just do some straight beds 30 inches wide, not too wide that you can't step over them. And I need to redesign, reconfigure, and dig. So Trevor dropped off these broccoli seedlings for me. I guess he had a few extra. It's always a bonus about starting your own plants from seed is often you get more than you need, so you can share them. So I have prepared this bed. Just gonna dig a little space for it and tip it out of its pot. It's a pretty nice soil that he's used to grow these. Just kind of drop it in the hole and snug it in. Just kind of not really covering the, maybe just a little bit covering the top of the pot. Get a little snug. And get some water. Trevor started these beautiful plants from seed, and we're gonna go down and look at all the other plants that he started for his garden this year.
Hi, I'm Trevor. I am a doctor of Chinese medicine, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I am a gardener. And I've been gardening pretty much all my adult life. My parents had a garden, my grandparents had a garden when I was a kid. But I probably went off in the direction of learning about gardening in all its aspects, probably around the age of 20. I've had lots of gardens. We moved a lot over my whole adult life, the past 30 years. I also worked as a professional landscaper in Vancouver. I've homesteaded in the Kootenays, growing lots of food. I've tried lots of different styles of garden. And we ended up here. 2016, we purchased this property and we've been building it ever since. And we did this no-dig style of, layering compost and to suppress weeds and this idea, this philosophy that the earth is one living organism, and so we're nurturing that living organism, and that earth as a living organism is what is going to nurture the plants. So as long as the soil is healthy, the plants will be healthy. And we did that with this whole garden, which was pretty much overgrown with brambles, blackberry and rose and that kind of thing. So we garden for food production. We grow a good majority of our vegetables year-round, both for storage and fresh eating. And we also grow for beauty. So we grow a lot of flowers, a lot of cut flowers, and we like to have lots of flowers around year-round, and also for the pollinators, so all the insects and birds, and trying to think about their habitat and their needs. And we just have a kind of ecological way of gardening, I guess, and to provide for our needs and also our friendly neighbors, the insects and birds and other living beings that we share this earth with. And we make choices what we do, and I choose to just have a relationship with the earth and with plants. So I look forward to sharing. Well, you're in my kitchen right now, and this is a light table I built this year. So I've used indoor lighting to get an early start on growing plants, probably for the past 25 years or so. And I've always used fluorescence, and I had kind of a primitive table that I put together with fluorescent bulbs that I used for years. And this year I switched over to using LED, so to be a little bit more, or a lot more energy efficient, and as well not as hot. So the LEDs underneath these They don't burn as hot, so the plants can get up a lot closer and not get burnt. And then I've got this kind of blocking under here just to bring the plants closer to the lights as I need. If starts are too far away, sometimes they'll stretch and then they'll get a real weak stem. I'll often start in these flats. These fits, there's cells, and there's 72 in each flat of cells. And I fill with a potting mix that I make, which is kind of a mixture of sifted compost and coir, coconut husk, and some kind of vermiculite, and in different ratios, but lower fertility just to promote good initial growth and sprouting. And then I have like a hot pad underneath to keep the soil at a certain temperature. And then there's this probe that goes in that will monitor. So for these, I've been keeping it about 21 degrees Celsius. And we have like a thermostat underneath here that I can adjust the temperature. But I've got at least 5 of these mats that we'll put on the different ones just in the early stage. Once they get established, so we take them off the mat. I often put this bubble on here. You can see all the moisture bubbles in there. That just helps to keep the humidity in there, so I don't have to water as much. And because every time you water, you kind of disturb the seeds. So it's nice to water and then leave it alone for several days. We have lace flower in here. We have phlox. We have some nasturtiums we've started. Underneath here is parsley. Parsley likes to be dark, to germinate. So I put this, piece of cardboard over just to give it some, darkness. We have Tithonia, the Mexican sunflower, which is a bright orange flower I grow every year. I love. We have eggplants. This is the walking stick kale that we're going to try this year. It apparently gets to like 10 feet tall or something crazy. It's like this crazy plant. Lots of tomatoes. We grow a lot of tomatoes. These got to be potted up really soon. All our peppers, we grow a mix of sweet and hot peppers, so chocolate peppers and king peppers, jalapenos, anchos, Italian sweets. All of these peppers have proven to do really, really well here in our climate, outside of the greenhouse, just in taking advantage of the natural weather pattern that we have here. These marigolds, these are marigolds. The seeds come from Taj Mahal in India, and they're really special. I got these seeds from my neighbor again. I just picked them off her flowers in her garden last summer, and they're like amazing. I'm so in love with this plant. It's already got little blooms on it. It's going to come out any day. This is the cup and saucer vine, which I'm excited. It's the first time growing that one. And yeah, so we basically nurture them here, take advantage of the interior warmth when it's cold outside. We don't have to heat a greenhouse or anything. We can just take advantage of our normal heat in the house. And when they are big and strong enough and it's warm enough outside, we start to harden them off. We'll start bringing them out slowly to get them adjusted to the outside temperature and light. And then eventually they make it into the garden. I've got this tray of mostly flowers. This is some celery and basil. But what I was gonna do today is just pot up, take from the small cell into a bigger pot, the Salvia, which is this Salvia called variety called Blue Monday Sage, which is a nice kind of purple flower. It's supposed to be pretty prolific, flowering, right until frost. And the bees love it, and it's quite drought tolerant, so I'm excited for that. Most of the salvias are. But these plants have already had their second true leaf division, so you get the kind of the first leaf, and then from there the first leaf that emerges isn't the true leaf. They look different. If we we can look. So these would be the first leaf that appears from seed, and then the fuzzy ones. There's 2 sets. They're the true leaf of the plant. And once they get those true leaves, it's more sturdy and easy to kind of pot up and prick on. So what I do is I just recycle as much plastic as I can. So when we bought our strawberry plants years ago, 3 years ago, we got these. The strawberries came in these. So we've just been using them ever since, and they work great for potting up. I've got a potting mix here that I've made, which is It's basically a mix that I learned from watching Gardener's World, which is Monty Don's mix, which is 1 part sifted compost, 2 parts coir, coconut husk, and then 1 part vermiculite in this one. Sometimes I'll sift in a little bit of the regular garden soil, but this mix doesn't have that. This is just a simple mix. So what I like to do is I'll kind of fill the pot up, a little bit at the bottom with some soil, and then I've got this nifty tool, which is just for pricking and transplanting metal that I got for my wife for Christmas last year. And it works great. But I'll just kind of put it in the side of the pot and then, lift it out. And you can see it's got some good root growth there. And then I'll just kind of place it in so it's kind of, the bottom is at the bottom of the soil, at the bottom of the pot. And then I just kind of, fill up soil all around it. And give it a tap so there's no air pockets. And press it in. And yeah, these are pretty hardy plants. So, but it's a little bit too cold for them to go outside. Yeah, so something like that. I'll water them at the end. And I put them in there. And yeah, I'll carry on and do the rest. And then we'll put them back in the house. But we'll transplant them back out in about a month. So when you prick out, you want to take it by the leaf, not the stem, because you don't want to damage. You can damage a leaf, but if you damage the stem, it could really hurt the plant. I put this poker in. You go right underneath, and I kind of tease it up. You tease it up, and you can see all those roots. Take that, and I have this hole in this other one, and then I kind of just gently put the roots down in there, and then I kind of tamp it down, not too hard. And there you go. That's going to turn into a nice celery plant. Another one. So again, these ones are growing closer together, so sometimes what we do is we kind of tease them apart there. Yeah, that one is going to come out. There's another one.
Hi, I'm Matthew, and my partner Katie and I are on Pender Island, and we caretake 100-year-old orchards across Pender, as well as we planted new orchards around the island, and our job is making cider, and it's a year-round process that starts with pruning in the winter and continues through harvest all the way to bottling the next year. And we do it all on Pender, but for me at least, and I could say for Katie, the reason we got into this whole business was because we actually enjoy the solitude, and the work involved with pruning is really peaceful. And yeah, it's a beautiful time of year to be out. These trees we've pruned for 4 years or so, and Rod had been pruning them before that, so these are not heavily neglected trees, but they are actually they're very productive, and so my maintenance is pretty low. But the shape of these trees is really nice because they are what's called they're more commercially pruned, and they're in a more of a renewal pruning mode, which means we're not training branches as much as we're thinning and making renewal cuts. So we're letting whole branches grow as long as they want to, and letting them come out and then droop down. And as they droop down and start to die because of they're getting more and more pendant, we allow branches to come over the top and renew them. And it actually just means it's a lot less work for both pruning and harvesting. When you are making a heading cut and you're removing a branch, the most important thing is to cut it at a growth ring or at the collar where it meets the other trunk or the branch. and rather than cutting a branch halfway. So if you're cutting off of here, for example, you want to cut right just at the end of the collar, because where you cut just beyond the collar, it has a healing, compartmentalizing hormone, and it can help seal off the cuts faster rather than cutting it in the middle and it rotting. But this is just strong enough to hold on to a crop, even at this angle. So we're gonna leave it, and I'm gonna climb up and start cutting some of the top branches. I'm looking to leave growth that's in a more optimum position. So this is going straight up off the branch, and it's just going to keep going up and up for the sunlight. So it's not in a great position. If this was off the side of the branch, we'd want to keep it like these were left, because horizontal branches are more likely to produce fruiting spurs. And you can see these are all fruiting buds because they're nice and swollen, and that's going to produce fruit. So the tree produces more of the fruiting hormone on horizontal wood rather than vertical wood. When it's vertical, it's really in vegetative mode, and it's just got so much more apical dominance, and it's just shooting for the sun. So it'll take a while for it to calm its growth and actually start producing a crop. I'm looking to keep stuff like this that's kind of sprouting sideways, and if it has space or not. And if it looks like it's gonna cross, then I take it out. So I'm just kind of thinning to a shape where there's lots of horizontal branches, essentially. Or if they are going up, they're at a nice enough angle that over time, as this produces more fruit, it weighs itself down and I can let it go. But then I have to balance and make sure this isn't getting too heavy. So I go in and I'll start taking off bigger branches to lighten the weight of this whole branch.
So we picked up our bare root fruit trees yesterday. One of them is an apricot. We had one growing here for the last 4 or 5 years, but it got a fungus disease, so each branch kept dying back every year. So we just decided we should probably replace it. It's gonna grow like a fan. So 2 of these buds we're gonna encourage to grow out as branches, and then we'll train them up. The espalier cables. This is the soil mix that we're gonna use. It's a bunch of soil from the hole that we dug out, and then we mixed in some compost and some horse manure. So we've got to add a cup of bone meal to it and a cup of lime. So we'll put probably about half of this in the hole, and then put the apricot tree up sort of high. We want it to be bermed a little bit so it's got good drainage, but we don't want to bury this. This is the graft from the rootstock, so that really needs to be above the ground. So we need to bury it about this deep. Okay, so I think that's about the right height. some soil right up underneath the roots. Okay. Okay, well that seems like a pretty good height. We've got the graft cut well above the soil level. Then we need to water it. So now we've got 4 more pear trees to plant.
Really sweet. Very, very kind of pale orange. Yeah. Anyways, I think that's a long enough.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Anyways, yeah. Yeah. So bye. Hopefully see you next month.